Republican pollster Justin Wallen and political strategist Mac Zilber join me to talk a little bit more about this. And the curious thing, the red flag here, was that these contacts between senior Trump officials on the campaign and these Russian operatives was happening exactly around the same time that, that there was evidence emerging of the hacking of the DNC by Russia. How do you think this looks for the Republicans?
Well, how it looks and how it may be very, very different.
Right,
I mean, there's no question that the optics are rough. The president cannot be happy right now. He cannot be happy with the way things look and the way things were handled over the last couple of weeks. But all that said, what we still have right now is a lot of activity, a lot of uncertainty. None of us have seen any content about what took place in these conversations. We know they were taped. We know the transcriptions exist. We don't know what was done. We also don't know about the flow of those conversations. It says there was a lot of activity. Was that in response? Was that prompted? Were the Russians calling in order to get that kind of a response? Is this all, frankly, a show? Russians do shows. I mean, right now they're deploying missiles in places that are naughty, that they shouldn't be doing it.
But this isn't the Russians doing the show. This is Trump campaign people reaching out to Russians to discuss who knows what.
Okay, so that may be true, but I think that's a nuance. Do we know that they were reaching out? I hear that there are multiple communications, but I don't know that that's always the case that they were initiating it. I think it's an assumption. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I think there was just multiple communications. I don't know if it was a back and
what we
forth.
do know is that it's supposedly constant contact. Now, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but if somebody called me every day and I didn't want to talk to them, at some point I'd stop picking up my phone. I mean, there's a lot that we don't know, but when multiple campaign officials are talking to Russian intelligence officials while Donald Trump is going out and saying, I want the Russians to hack my opponent, and then the Russians hack his opponent, at a certain point, we don't have to put all that many pieces together. There's only a few little places that haven't already been colored in by what we know.
We saw Sean Spicer today, the spokesman, coming out and sort of defending Donald Trump and saying that he has been tough on Russia. Well, let's have a listen to what he said, actually.
The irony of this entire situation is that the president has been incredibly tough on Russia. He continues to raise the issue of Crimea, which the previous administration had allowed to be seized by Russia. President Trump has made it very clear that he expects the Russian government to de-escalate violence in the Ukraine and return Crimea. At the same time, he fully expects to and wants to be able to get along with Russia, unlike previous administrations, so that we can solve many problems together facing the world, such as the threat of ISIS and terrorism.
Which is all very fine, but the reality is, even though some in the administration, like Nikki Haley at the UN, one example, Donald Trump has not been tough on Russia. He has been warm to Russia.
Well, he has allowed his proxies to be tough on them without vocally condemning them. And we know for a fact that there is no caution with the president in that regard. If he feels that somebody who works on his behalf, who speaks for him, is saying something that's contrary to his goals, he will not say it later. He will say it immediately and in no uncertain terms.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we've all known since December that Michael Flynn called the Russian ambassador the day of the sanctions. A reasonable person would assume, and many did at the time, that that conversation was about the sanctions. If Donald Trump shuts down people who do things that he doesn't like when it happens, you'd think that he would have spoken up before this hit the press. Instead, Trump has known for several weeks that Flynn lied about this and didn't speak up and tell Flynn to resign until this became a big news story. Clearly, he was okay with Flynn doing this.
Well, I think maybe he was. So what? So he had a conversation about policy before taking the office. There's all this talk about the Logan Act.
Yeah, normally you don't provide aid and comfort to a foreign power before you take an office.
This is very different. This is not a business person trying to position an oil company.
No, this is about
an incoming
undermining the foreign policy of the United States.
While you're not in government.
But you say that, but I haven't read the script. Have you?
Well,
I mean,
no,
I think it's a wonderful assumption.
Would Michael Flynn have gone and had a conversation about sanctions with the Russian ambassador of his own volition? Is that something that he might have done, picked up the phone
Michael
and
Flynn
just
does things because he wants to do things.
Without running it by anyone in the campaign? Because, of course, there are a lot of questions are being asked now about who knew what and when it comes to that.
I think it would be pretty shocking if he made a decision like that without running it by his boss. And if he did, I think it would be pretty shocking if Donald Trump didn't ask him, hey, what did you talk to the Russian ambassador about after the news reports came out? The idea that 2 months passed and Donald Trump didn't ask, frankly, doesn't pass the smell test.
The other thing that raises some eyebrows is the administration saying that Michael Flynn resigned because trust no longer existed. That was the reason that he told the vice president something that wasn't true, so there was a deficit of trust. Surely the issue should have been that he was discussing sanctions with the Russian ambassador.
Isn't that possible? I mean, we know that to some extent it was discussed, but again, we don't know the scope of it. I presume we'll find out. I certainly want to. I think clarity is important. I also would like to find it's a bit of an elephant in the room, but why is our intelligence service a sieve? Why are these things flowing out into the public? They don't belong there. I think one of the things President Trump has learned is you cross the American intelligence services at your peril.
Well, actually, Donald Trump tweeted about that. Let's just call it up here. And he actually says, the real story here is, why are there so many illegal leaks coming out of Washington? Will these leaks be happening as I deal on North Korea? I mean, he has a point. The place is leaking like a sieve, but that's not the real story, surely. The real story is all of these other issues that are coming out.
Right, well, I'll tell you, the reason that
these leaks are bad politically,
well,
but...
the reason these leaks had to happen was because Hope Hicks was asked if the Trump campaign talked to the Russians during the campaign. She said they didn't. Sean Spicer was asked. He said they didn't. At a certain point, when there's some stuff that's potentially going to really undermine the foreign policy of our country, and the administration is openly lying about it, somebody's got to bring it to the public. It's whistleblowing, not leaking at that point.
You continue to say lying, and yet day after day after day, we see one press conference, one representative saying one thing, one saying the other thing. Clearly, we have some operational issues in the White House in terms of what is supposed to be said, who knows what, and it may be just as simple as that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing.
Yeah, but that is terrifying. If the National Security Advisor can make an important foreign policy call to maybe the most important foreign power in the world, and, you know, those White House spokespeople don't know its content.
I mean, the president is not going to babysit him on every call. These are grown, capable people.
You know, the thing is, and you're a GOP pollster, but, you know, when you look at it, you've had the court battles over immigration, you've got Kellyanne Conway in trouble over ethics issue, you've had this row over matters of state being discussed in a public place in the restaurant at Mar-a-Lago, which just seems on its face absolutely extraordinary. And now this about Michael Flynn resigning, and now these contacts between Trump and... could you imagine 3 weeks into... I mean, I just reeled off top of my head stuff. That's 3 weeks into it.
You raise a good point, but there is, as always,
It's chaos,
there's another
isn't it?
side. Well, there's a lot going on. I mean, this is someone who has demonstrated that he's driven. He has an agenda. He's pursuing it. Now, whether you agree with it or not, he's going full bore at it, and he's doing it faster than really, I think, anyone in any administration has ever done.
Well, I've got to put this up too, because it just struck me as somebody who's dealt with the military a lot over the years. The head of U.S. Special Operations Command had this to say about the White House at a conference today. He said, "Our government continues to be in unbelievable turmoil. I hope they sort it out soon, because we're in a nation of..." Well, now he's not the only one saying that, you know, that things seem to be a little bit tumultuous at the White House. But this is a serving commander of Special Operations Command. For him to speak publicly like that, and quite possibly risk his job in doing so, seems to me to be extraordinary, mate.
Yeah, well, this is a few weeks. We've got 8 years left of this, and I don't... Yeah,
you're planning ahead
4
there.
days. Well,
again, an assumption, this one.
Right, and frankly, I mean, we're already careening from potential foreign policy crisis to potential foreign policy crisis. I mean, it's high past time for Congress to open up early discussions of introducing articles of impeachment, because frankly, I don't think that our national security is safe with a group of bumbling fools.
Do you think there should be some inquiries first?
Well, apparently laws don't really matter in this particular world.
Well, they don't matter to a president who's been
they
breaking them left
in
and
what way
right.
has he been breaking them?
Well, from colluding with a foreign power to the emoluments clause of the Constitution to Kellyanne Conway's ethics violations. I mean, there's any number of...
When we see the evidence, fine, I'll jump on board.
I mean,
you're
how
making
much more evidence do we need?
Are you expecting... But you're expecting...
There's plenty of written down evidence.
Well, have you seen it?
Is it safe to expect there's
of
going to be months of investigations here, that you expect to see Michael Flynn up at a congressional inquiry?
Yeah, I think so. And I suspect that several of these things will be taken seriously, even something that may seem as frivolous as Kellyanne Conway's Ivanka Trump comment. I suspect that these things will be taken seriously, if for no other reason. I think there is concern within the traditional GOP about the perspective of order. I may be wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if they want to have an appearance of approaching questions in a serious manner and resolving them.
All right, I have to leave it there, unfortunately. Justin Wallen, GOP pollster and Democratic strategist Mac Zilber, thanks so much for being with us, gentlemen.